Wagwan people, happy health day. It's me again, Ian Robinson, and I'm out here enjoying my walk, my morning walk, right? And normally I'm running or sometimes I'm riding my bike, but today I just feel like taking a nice slow walk, right? Just enjoy this piece of land right here. Enjoy this park right here. Nice, right? So big and nice. Because I want this alone time. Because this alone time is therapy. It's therapy for me. Because it's getting down to crunch time. And it's getting down to crunch time because it's no longer a case where a lot of people can say, should I or should I not take the VX? Now, people are asking, which VX should I take? That's what they're saying to themselves. They're no longer saying, should I or should I not take it? They're saying, which one should I take? That's the questions they're asking themselves, because yesterday, which was August 24th, the FDA approved the Pfizer Vx. What does that mean? This means that there's going to be more demands on people to take the Vx. This means that now nobody's going to be accepting any excuses as to why people didn't take it. Right? The pressure is on. And as a result of that, a lot of people will be losing their jobs. A lot of people will be, kicked out of school, like college students, which is happening already. A lot of college students getting kicked out of school. A lot of people will be losing opportunities. A lot of people won't be able to travel, So it's pretty serious right now. So I was talking to a friend yesterday, and even a few family members, even my mom. And my mom was saying the same thing, like, hey, I want to keep my job. I might have to take this thing. Which one should I take? I don't know. I have friends who are saying the same thing. Hey, I got a family to feed. I have wife and kids. I have stuff to pay for. I have bills to pay. Which one of these things should I take? So people are having questions. So essentially, this video here is all about, giving people the information. Well, actually, this one is called preparing for the VX. Preparing for the VX. That's what it's all about. Preparing for the VX, right? And as far as preparing is concerned, this one is going to be all about preparing you with information and preparing you with, a comparative look at the VXs. Pardon me. I don't want to say that word. I'll get censored. So it's all about preparing you for the VX so that you can make an intelligent decision when the time comes for you to take it. Because everything we do in life should be based on intelligent decisions. Nothing should be based on guessing and assuming. We should know. So I'm just presenting some facts, some key information that you can use as far as making the choice as to which one you will take. Because it's getting tight out here. It's getting hot. People will have to choose. So, stay tuned. Enjoy the presentation. Right? And of course, like, subscribe, and share. And have a happy health day as you're watching this thing. Peace out, people. So, yep. So this one is called Comparing the Big Three VXs. And of course, it's all about Happy Health Day. And yours truly, Ian H. Robinson, right? So I made this thing, to help some people I know who, they're thinking about taking it and they want to make the best choice. They're thinking about taking the vax and they want to make the best choice because, of course, life is not a guessing game. We can't guess our way through life. We have to know what we're doing at all times. So, as one of my friends says, it's best to make an intelligent decision about this thing. If they're going to take this thing, can't just jump in it first and not know what you're getting into. So, let's jump right in. All right. So our first slide right here. It's all about comparing the big three VXs. And the big three are Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson. Now, there are other companies out there that have made VXs. And we're talking about Novavax in China. They have a VX. And we got to think about AstraZeneca as well. And the AstraZeneca VX is very popular in Europe and in some countries in Africa, right? So we're going to move on to the other slide. Now, what's slide number 3? Let's start out by comparing the histories of these companies. Now, Moderna is the fledgling on the block. That's the baby boy company on the block, right? And Moderna was started in 2010. And Moderna is not necessarily a pharmaceutical company, but Moderna they spend time in the biotech field. Because technically, like if you're into stocks, I don't know if you've ever paid attention to, the stocks and these companies before, but Moderna is traded on the NASDAQ. And companies that are traded on the NASDAQ are essentially tech companies. So Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson are not traded on the NASDAQ. They're not tech companies, but Moderna is traded on the NASDAQ, right? So Moderna specializes in the study of RNA. Now, what is RNA? RNA is ribonucleic acid, and that has a lot to do with genetics and DNA, which means deoxyribonucleic acid. Now, Moderna, if you look at the name carefully, Moderna, you see MODE, which is short for modified, and then you see RNA. So the very name of the company says what it does. The company basically means modified RNA. So that is what Moderna does. It's all about modifying RNA, right? I don't know how simpler to put it. Now, Pfizer is the grandpappy on the block, right? So Pfizer has been around since 1849. A very old company. Now, Pfizer has a lot of popular products, right? So when you're looking at Advil, we all know Advil. Advil has been around forever. Simple pain reliever. Then you have Viagra. A lot of people know about Viagra. I don't have to say anything about Viagra. You have Xanax and you have Zoloft. Now, again, Pfizer is one of the oldest pharmaceutical companies on the planet and certainly in America, right? So now let's look at Johnson & Johnson in comparison. Johnson & Johnson was started in 1886 by Robert Wood Johnson and his brothers, hence the name Johnson & Johnson. It was started by the Johnson brothers. Now, we all know that Johnson & Johnson has tons of products, not only pharmaceutical products, but tons of household stuff. That Vaseline and that baby powder and that baby oil and all, Band-Aids and all kinds of different stuff. So, they have tons of products. They're all over the place. And that's a household name, Johnson & Johnson. So moving on to slide number 4 in the comparison of the big three. Now, we're going to look at doses or shots administered so far on a global scale, right? So right now, Pfizer is leading the way. And we know that today, August 24th, is the day that the Pfizer Vx was approved by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, right? So Pfizer gained their approval. So, they're going to be doing, a lot of people are going to be running to the Pfizer more than anything. And, I need to buy some Pfizer stocks, actually. I really do. I'm surprised I didn't buy any already. But I need to buy some of this Pfizer stocks, man. They're going to be making a lot of money. So anyway, Pfizer has let's put it this way. Over 200 million shots of the Pfizer has been administered, right? Over 200 million doses or shots have been administered so far in this fight. That's a lot. 200 million, that's a lot. That is a lot. Now, let's look at the Moderna. It's 145 million. That's pretty high too, but they're coming in second behind Pfizer. And third place with the bronze medal is Johnson & Johnson with almost 14 million. That's a lot too. That's pretty impressive, but they're dwarfed by the Pfizer at this point in time. So, Right now it's the biggest VX campaign we have seen in the history of mankind. And so far, more than 5 billion doses have been administered across 183 countries. And that's according to data collected by Bloomberg, right? So this number right here that says 5 billion doses, that includes, all the other vaccines, all the other VXs, the AstraZeneca and such, right? That includes all the VXs in total. 5 billion. That's a whole lot. 5 billion doses administered so far. That's a lot. But, so it says here that roughly 36 million doses are administered a day. So that's across the planet. That is a lot. Now in the US, 364 million doses have been administered so far. And as of last week, an average of 860,000 doses are administered per day. And that's on a global scale. So, these numbers are pretty heavy. So, a lot of people complain that a lot of people aren't taking it, but a lot of people are taking it. And of course, you have people who are not taking it, or they're not ready to take it as yet. But, the numbers are still big. The numbers are very crazy. I didn't know it was this big. So let's move on to the next slide. Slide number 5. Okay. Now let's compare the number of shots needed for each VX, right? So as far as Pfizer is concerned, it's 2 shots. They only require you to take 2 shots. And the shots are 21 days apart. So that's basically 3 weeks apart. So if you take 1 Pfizer today, within 3 weeks, you got to take the second one, right? So these are things you have to think about when the time comes, or if you decide to take it. Now, as far as the Moderna is concerned, it's 2 shots, but it's 28 days apart. So it's a full month apart. So it's 4 weeks apart, right? So the Pfizer is 3 weeks apart. The Moderna is 4 weeks apart. And it's the same thing, 2 shots. So I think there's going to be a lot of similarities between the Pfizer and the Moderna. I think so. Lots of commonalities, lots of similarities. So far we see one similarity where it's 2 shots, and the amount of time between the shots are pretty similar. Now for the Johnson & Johnson, we see a big difference here. We see a contrast. The Johnson & Johnson is 1 shot, and it takes full effect in 28 days. So after taking the first shot, by 28 days, I guess it starts doing its thing within your body within that period of time. So this is something for you to know and to think about when the time comes for you to make your choice. Because again, it's all about intelligent choices. So, all right. Slide number 6. Now let's look at the cost per dosage. This is something we have to also look at with these companies. Who's making the big bucks and the price of these things? Again, these things have a price tag. They're not for free, because these companies are not non-for-profit 403b corporations. These companies are all about their money. And that's one thing we have to understand. Like when I see these companies, I hear that song, that Wu-Tang Clan song playing in my head. That song, Cream, cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bills, y'all. Exactly. That's what I hear playing in my head when I look at these companies. They want their money. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of countries, like a lot of quote unquote third world countries, don't have enough VX for its population, because someone has to pay for it, and certain governments probably do not have enough money to pay for these things. And these companies aren't going to give away free stuff. They're not going to give away free stuff. They want their money. And this is why some quote unquote first world nations have like a stockpile, because they can afford it. They can afford to pay for it because they have good taxation systems. They have a good way of collecting tax dollars from people. And America is amazing at collecting tax dollars from people. So America is stacked with money. And of course, if the government is paying for these things, it means the taxpayers are paying. So the money is coming out of your pocket. The people have to pay on the back end. So we all have to pay for it. So let's look at the price tag per dose, right? So Moderna is $32 to $37 per dose. That's the highest. The Pfizer is $19.50. Let's say roughly $20 per dose. Now, with the Moderna and the Pfizer, remember, the price tags are different, but these are double doses. So technically, the Moderna is gonna run to like around $70 because it's 2 shots, and the Pfizer is gonna run to $40 because it's 2 shots. The Johnson & Johnson now is $10 and it's 1 shot. So that's an interesting thing to look at and to consider when the time comes. That can help you to make a decision. And I know you'll say, well, that's the money. I only care about the effectiveness. Well, yeah, the effectiveness is key, but this is something that we need to know as well. Because as taxpayers, we need to know where the money is going and what's what. It's always good to know these things. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so we're at slide number 7. So now, when it comes on to overall earnings, in terms of the VX, it's very interesting when we look at the real big dollar signs. You know, it's all about the cream, right? So Moderna has made $803 million in 2020. $803 million. Damn. That's like more than the GDP of some countries. That's crazy. One corporation made so much money. $803 million in 2020. And mind you, in 2019, Moderna made only $60 million on their regular products and services. So Moderna didn't experience 100% increase in profits. They didn't experience 200%, 300, 400. No. Exponential earnings. Look, 800 million versus 60 million the year before. That is crazy. So, that's a crazy windfall. Again, I need to buy some Moderna stocks, man. I don't know how come this slipped me. I really need to buy some Moderna stocks. Now, let's look at Pfizer. Pfizer made a total of $3.5 billion in the first quarter of 2021. 3.5 billion. Damn. This 3.5 billion makes 800 million look like nothing. Damn. Some serious cash. The government is spending some serious money. And when you look at the amount of money that's being spent, that's why the inflation is so crazy right now. You know what I mean? All the free money that's being given out and all the money being spent and all this stuff, it's crazy. It's like, the taxpayers and the country is getting bankrupt. But hey, America will make its money back, right? So now let's look at Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson made $14.7 billion. $14.7 billion. No, Johnson & Johnson usually makes billions of dollars every year, right? But if you look carefully here, Johnson & Johnson made actually $12 billion from VX revenue. $12 billion from VX revenue. And then that $12 billion plus another 2-something billion of what it normally makes comes up to a total of $14.7 billion. And I think that's for last year. That is some crazy earnings, man. Some crazy earnings. Jesus. Let's move on. We're at slide number 8. Now, effectiveness. Now, this is the thing that, you guys really want to know when it comes down to comparison. I just did the money thing just to show what's really going on behind the scenes, but the effectiveness is the thing that people really want to know. So Moderna is said to be at a 96 percentile as far as effectiveness is concerned. Pfizer is at a 95 percentile as far as effectiveness is concerned. And Johnson & Johnson is at 72% effectiveness. Now, who came up with these numbers? Not me. Don't quote me. The FDA conducted their investigations and their research, and they came up with these numbers, not me. So I'm going to say this as my disclaimer. The information right here was taken from the Yale Medicine Database. So Ian Robinson didn't make these numbers up. The Yale Medicine Database did it. They got their information from the FDA, and the FDA got their information from doing their scientific research, right? So Now, FDA also claims that the Johnson & Johnson is effective against the Delta V. But there's a shortfall, right? The FDA reports concerns about Johnson & Johnson and the rare neurological complication called Guillain-Barré syndrome. I hope I'm saying that the right way. I hope I'm not butchering that name. I'm sure it's the name of a scientist. I need to do some research about the Guillain-Barré syndrome, right? So that's the shortfall with the Johnson & Johnson. You know, it is effective against the Delta V. It is at 72%. To some cases, it says, to like 80%, but it has the lowest percentile effectiveness, but it also has a complication associated with it, right? So this is something you have to really take into consideration again when the time comes, so you can make an intelligent decision, because that's what matters. So at this point with this slide, it's all about doing your due diligence, right? It's all about paying close attention to the numbers. So that will help you to make your decision, right? So as far as the Moderna is concerned, now the CDC says that the effectiveness has dropped to 53%. I'm not making up these numbers. You can look for these numbers on the CDC yourself. CDC.gov, right? And the effectiveness lasts like 6 months before everything starts to wane, and that's how long the study has been going on with the Moderna, right? So with the Pfizer now, they're claiming that it has dropped to 39% effectiveness, and this claim, or this study or research, or this number comes out of Israel, particularly Israel, because Israel uses primarily the Pfizer. I think that's the only one they use, and they're seeing a 39% effectiveness percentile with the Pfizer Vx. So that's a pretty interesting thing to look at. So again, CDC is saying that Moderna is down to 53% effectiveness. Israel and many other sources are claiming that the Pfizer is at a 39% effectiveness, and Johnson & Johnson is seeing a 71% effectiveness. And they're seeing a drop in the potency and in the strength and the effectiveness after 8 months. So as you can see here, Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer, Moderna and Pfizer really, you can see the decline after 6 months. Johnson & Johnson is after 8 months. And you can look at the numbers here for yourself. But of course, do your research. Do your due diligence. Don't just take my word for it. This information right here was kind of difficult for me to come by because I see so many different conflicting numbers. So honestly, these numbers aren't even etched in stone. Because remember, these companies sometimes do their own press releases. Because this is a competition. This is capitalism at work right here. So everyone is going to give their own number and say this and that. But I think one of the real good numbers to look at is what Israel is saying. Because remember, they primarily use the Pfizer. I think that's the only one they use. So they would have a good handle and a good measure of what's really going on with this VX. And so far, they're saying that it's at 39% effectiveness. And of course, the Johnson & Johnson is at a higher rate of effectiveness, as seen here. But there are certain issues to consider, again, like the blood clotting and the neurological condition. So, my friends, all about the due diligence. No joke thing. Let's move on. Next slide. Boom. Slide number 9. Now we're talking about side effects. We have to think about side effects because, again, medications always have side effects. And VXs always have side effects, right? Whenever a chemical is going into your body or some kind of substance, we have to look out for these things. And in most cases, the side effects are very simple and harmless, but sometimes you can have some serious side effects that's dangerous, right? So if you look here, we see that the simple side effects go across the board. Chills, headaches, tiredness, and of course a little redness at the spot and a little swelling. Now, in some cases, there's anaphylaxis, and anaphylaxis is like an extreme allergic reaction, right? And, they advise that doctors can give you an epinephrine shot to counteract the anaphylaxis, right? So that's it for the side effects with these three. So again, these are things to know. I hope you're taking notes, people. Now, slide number 10. Now, the FDA warnings. Now, the FDA says that Moderna and Pfizer can lead to myocarditis and pericarditis. Now, what's myocarditis and pericarditis? These are inflammatory conditions that affect the heart. So I think myocarditis affects the heart muscles and pericarditis affect the lining of the outside of the heart, I believe. So I hope I'm saying the right thing. Now, with Johnson & Johnson, again, the warning is all about the Guillain-Barré syndrome and something crucial here, blood clotting. Now, this is what was happening with the AstraZeneca in Germany, the blood clotting, And now we see the Johnson & Johnson had a blood clotting issue. And this is why the FDA kind of took them off the market for a bit, kind of took Johnson & Johnson out of the game, so to speak, for a bit. I think it was in May or June or something like that, late spring, early summer. So the blood clotting was an issue with the Johnson & Johnson, and that's a warning from the FDA. So I'm glad at least the FDA is warning people and letting them know what's going on. The FDA is doing their job in that aspect. So at least, people need to know these things. So I would say if you have a history of blood clotting or something like that in your history, in your medical history, I would probably avoid this one. Again, you gotta make calculated risks or calculated decisions. You need to know. You need to pay attention to these things, and don't go in blind. Right? Only fools rush in. So we're at slide number 11. We're almost done here. So we're thinking about the pathways or the mode of action or how these things work, right? So again, we can look here. We see that the Moderna and the Pfizer are similar again. They both work on the mRNA principle, right? So let me read some information that I have here. Again, I didn't create these information right here. I'm just getting the information elsewhere and presenting it to you. So let me read what it says about the Moderna. Similar to the Pfizer Vx, this is an mRNA vax that sends the body's cells instructions for making a spike protein that will train the immune system to recognize it. The immune system will then attack the spike protein the next time it sees it. So this one works on the principle of, giving your body instructions on what to make and what to look out for and what to fight against, right? So let's see how the Pfizer works. Obviously, the Pfizer works in a similar principle, but I'll read it anyway. So, unlike regular vaccines that put a weakened or inactive disease germ into the body, the Pfizer mRNA vaccine delivers a tiny piece of genetic code, from the SARS-CoV-2 virus to host cells in the body, essentially giving those cells instructions. So again, you see the term instructions in the Pfizer and in the Moderna. So it's giving instructions or blueprints for making copies of the spike proteins. Interesting. The spikes do the work of penetrating and infecting host cells. These proteins stimulate an immune response, producing antibodies and developing memory cells that will recognize and respond if the body is infected with the actual virus. So it's a similar principle. It's all about giving instructions on what to do. Now, this is different from the Moderna and the Pfizer works on a different principle from traditional vaccines, because traditional vaccines is all about a weakened version, right? Now let's see what the J&J is all about. It says here, scientists engineer a harmless adenovirus, right? An adenovirus is basically an inactivated virus that can cause the cold or bronchitis or, those small time respiratory sicknesses, right? So it says here, let me start over again actually. Scientists engineer a harmless adenovirus as a shell to carry genetic code on the spike proteins to the cell, right? The shell. and the code can't make you sick. But once the code is inside the cells produce a spike protein to train the body's immune system, which creates antibodies and memory cells to protect against the actual SARS-CoV-2 infection. So the principle is different, but it works out the same in the end. It's all about training the body. So the first two give instructions. The Moderna gives instructions. The Pfizer gives instructions on what kind of protein to make. But the Johnson & Johnson actually sends in an inactivated version, fabricated version of the virus. So in the end, it works the same way about, telling the body what to do, so to speak, or telling the immune system what to do. So, this is a key thing to know and a key thing to understand, because I think this is the thing that a lot of people are afraid of, and a lot of people don't trust, like how this thing works and what is going to happen inside the cells and inside the genetic material and inside the DNA. A lot of people are terrified of this thing, and I can't blame them, because this is some new scientific approach. This is some new stuff. It's not like regular old measles or mumps or rubella, where it's like a weakened version. This is like giving your DNA instructions on what to do. No, everybody's afraid of turning into some kind of mutant. So, it might sound funny, but it's not funny. So, it's all different. So this will make the Johnson & Johnson seem like a favorite for a lot of people, because it takes the traditional way. But again, the Johnson & Johnson has some stuff, the effectiveness is lower than the others. You understand what I mean? So there's pros and cons to consider. And again, I'm going to repeat that. The Johnson & Johnson works on the traditional principle, but the effectiveness is lower than the Moderna and Pfizer. Now, the Pfizer works on the mRNA principle, where instructions are given to your cells on what kind of proteins to make and how to act when the virus actually shows up in the system. This is a new technology, and people are afraid of new technology, but the catch is that the effectiveness is at a higher percentile rate. So it's like a catch-22, It's very interesting. These are very interesting things to consider when the time comes, because again, people are getting boxed in, people are getting arrested, people are protesting in the street, and it's going to come to a point where it's like, yo, I need my job. I might have to take this thing, because a lot of people I know don't want to take it, or had no intentions on taking it, but because, they got to feed their families. So they had to make a choice. And, some people just did the guesswork and say, I'm going to take the Moderna or the Pfizer or the Johnson & Johnson. People did the guesswork. But a lot of people want to make intelligent decisions, educated decisions. Not everyone wants to do the